welcome back to my channel. I'm Michael, and today I'm going to attempt another comeback to BookTube. I've had a very conflicted relationship with BookTube, and I think a lot of it is to do with my awkwardness and never being able to produce content that I was really happy with. I think speaking in front of a camera is very awkward, and I feel like I end up rushing through what I want to say, which just means that I don't always say what I want to say. I don't always articulate very well, and I think I often skip over a lot of points that I want to make. And with BookTube, I'm really struggling to find that confidence, really struggling to get to a point where I'm actually happy with my content. And I think I've decided to come back because I really want to improve. I really want to be better at communicating my thoughts on books, especially in an awkward situation. I am in a book club because I'm trying to push myself to talk to people about books better. I have my blog, which I write a lot of reviews, and I really like my blog. I feel like I can see my progress over the years of my writing improving. But when I look at BookTube, I don't feel like I'm improving. I feel like I'm still that same awkward person. And that's really complicated my relationship with BookTube. The other thing that I really struggle with is I read a lot of translations. I read a lot of books that don't get talked about on BookTube enough. And when you're reading books that you don't see being talked about, it's really hard to find a place in the community. It's like you're watching these people because they're awesome and because they're your friends, but they don't often talk about books that interest you, and it makes it really difficult to want to keep watching. And a lot of the booktubers that I do really like, I follow on Twitter, so I've still got that method of communicating with them. So when it comes to BookTube, I don't have much motivation, and I often feel like I'm not part of the community. And because BookTube's growing, it was really difficult to feel a part of a community. And lately, unfortunately, to a lot of people being hurt, I have started to feel like the community again. And something that I was thinking about last night is I was talking about how BookTube's getting really big, and in order to maintain a sense of community, I felt like the BookTube community needed to split, and it kind of has split recently, and unfortunately not for the best reasons, but it kind of has caused a little bit of a divide. And what I wanted to see was more focus groups. Like my niche of BookTube is different to someone else's, and the problem with that is a lot of people read a lot of different books, so trying to find a community in the BookTube community meant you would have to go through a lot of different, you would be wandering between different niches, and I guess that doesn't really work. But like the division in BookTube at the moment is terrible. I hate what's happened, but I really support the people that have spoken up against misogyny and sexual harassment, and I think that's really important, and I think we need to be speaking up. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear about the darker sides of BookTube. They want it to be a happy little place, but unfortunately, if people don't speak up, then people are still going to feel isolated. And I'm not here to talk about that situation. I'm not here to talk about the video where apparently I'm an instigator because I supported some friends of mine who spoke up. But I'm here because I feel like I'm a part of the community again, and it's not for the best reason, but it's the only positive I've been able to find in this situation lately. So I thought I would try something new. When it came to BookTube, I always felt like doing a wrap-up or doing a TBR or a tag, it's kind of boring. I really didn't like that. I kind of like doing the Friday reads, but I felt like that was just too restrictive, and then you have to do it on a Friday or a weekend or whatever. So I'm going to just call these my Bookish life, so I can pretty much blend in different topics I want to talk about. Like today I want to talk about a couple of my recent favourite reads that I've read in the beginning of the year. I really thought about doing the mid-year book freakout tag because I thought it would be a good way to come back and talk about some of the books I liked in the year, but there were questions there that I didn't really like a book that made you happy or your favourite sequel, or the worst one obviously was the fictional crush. I'm happily married, so crushes, I don't have time for that. I like books that are challenging. I like books that teach me a bit about the world, and I like books that open my eyes to different situations and explore different cultures. I am drawn to translations because I feel like it's just like an extra gatekeeper. So what I mean by that is the books that get translated from other countries are normally the books that translators have read that they really loved, or books that publishers or the country feel like represent something interesting about their country or help people understand that country a bit more. So publishers publish a lot of books. A lot of them I really don't like, but with translations, you've got that another gatekeeper letting the best of the best kind of situation. And I really like that because I feel like I'm more likely to get a book that I enjoy. Obviously, I don't love everything, and there's a lot of stuff that is not for me, but I feel like I have a better track record with translations because there's something more than just a plot or interesting characters. It's a book that does a little bit more than just what we come to expect, a different narrative style, a bit more experimental, different story than we normally read. And that's what I like about translations. And obviously the other reason I read translations is because I learn more about cultures that I don't really experience. I learn about different people's lives that aren't the normal Western world life. And I've noticed that their story structure and the way they write books are different to American or UK or Australian authors. They've got a slightly different style, a slightly different technique. And I really appreciate the differences these books have to similar books that may be published from the UK or from America. And when you start reading a lot of different ones, you start to pick up similarities, you start to pick up a lot of different threads that seem to be common within the country and start to be common for a culture, things that are important for them to explore. Like with Japanese literature, there's a lot of exploration into this idea of being alone in a big city, and it really comes through in a lot of books and in a lot of different ways. So you get to see that. Like with Australian literature, you see a lot of suburban middle-class family dramas. And I think that's a huge part of Australian culture is that. But there are different topics that get explored within Australia, but you start to pick up on topics that are obviously important to that country, and you start to see that play out. And I guess that's why I really love translations, because I get to see and understand a little bit more about a different country. So this is my bookish life. I'm going to talk about whatever I want about when it comes to books. I might do some book hauls in the midst of some mini reviews. I might tell you what I'm planning to read. I just kind of blend everything into like one video. And I'm sure there are different types of videos, like a Friday or weekend reads video or a wrap-up video that may feel very similar to this style. But I just wanted to call it this because I'm not putting that restraint on having to do it at the end of a month or on a Friday or a weekend. I just could be a little infrequent. I could just record when I feel inspired to record. I don't have to keep to a certain topic or a certain theme. Like for this one, I'm going to be talking about my recent favorites from the first half of the year and maybe talk about some books I'm currently reading at the moment. The next video is probably going to be more recent reads that I've read, and who knows, if I buy a book, it probably add a little bit of, hey, look, I bought this book as well, or I got this from the library. Just blend everything. Don't really like tags, so I probably won't do many tags, but if I find a question or something that's interesting, I might incorporate it here. I guess it's just more of, I want something that's a little open-ended. I want something where I can talk about books and practice speaking about these books, but I don't want to be restricted. Like, kind of like mini reviews, I guess, would probably be the best way to do it, because I feel like I don't have the confidence to do a full review, and full reviews don't often get the best view count. I love reviews because I think they're an important part of our bookish life and our bookish world. But I feel like a lot of people don't watch them because they feel like maybe they have to read the book first. And for me, I feel like I need to say more than I am actually saying to make the review feel complete. I feel like a lot of my reviews are too short, and 5-minute reviews are fine, but I feel like I am letting myself down because I miss stuff and I'm not talking about everything I would want to say, and my nerves get in the way and I rush through it. So I guess that's what I hope to do with this. I hope to just talk about some fate. I just hope to talk about books, and that's the most important thing of BookTube, just talking about books. So I have a name for it. It doesn't really mean anything. It just means that I'm going to try and do more BookTube. I'm going to try and be better at this, and hopefully I'll improve in talking. So let's quickly go over the 3 books that I've really loved in the first half of this year. And we'll start with The Years by Anne Enright. And this is translated by Alison L. Strower. And this is a memoir that I read because it was on the Man Booker International Prize. It was shortlisted for that prize. And while I don't think it should have been eligible because it is non-fiction, I'm really glad it was on the list because it did mean I picked it up. Just to give you a bit of context, this is a Fitzcarraldo edition, and they made a case for this book to be included in the Man Booker International Prize because they believed it wasn't entirely non-fiction. They thought it was more autobiographical novels. But having said that, Fitzcarraldo have a very unique style for books. The dark blue, fiction. The white books, non-fiction, and that's how they market them. So when they say it's not non-fiction, they've picked the wrong cover for it. But what I loved about this is that spans from the 1940s after World War II into more recent times, and it's more an exploration of the changing of time. We are seeing Anne Enright's life play out through it, but the main thing that you see is the cultural change. You see the shifts that have changed after World War II, the socialism, the existential philosophy, the political movements, technology really making advances and all this. And it's kind of like Anne Enright's watching how the world is shifting more than a memoir. There's a lot of elements about this that are definitely autobiographical in a sense that you see her life as a French literature teacher and how she's experiencing the world and how it's changing. But there are times she switches to third person, and instead of talking about herself, she uses the phrase we, as in, this is not a issue that's just affecting me. This is an issue that's affecting all of France or all the world. And the way she does that is really like seamless and really well done, because you are seeing her step away from her personal life and look at it as a more broader issue. And I really like that technique. And this, it's really French. Like, there's a lot about French literature. There's a lot about philosophy, and you feel like she's wearing a beret, smoking in a cafe, talking about philosophy with people. That's the kind of book you could expect here, and I absolutely adored it. I think it's just an amazing memoir, and I really like that switch to the third person, and that will come to play in another book I'm going to talk about lately. But The Year's definitely a book that I will be reading again, and I definitely need to read more from Annie Enright, and I am thankful that it was on the Man Booker Prize shortlist. I think it could have won, but that would have just caused too much controversy. It also made me want to read Remembrance of Things Past. I've read Swan's Way. I haven't completed the entire Proust series, but I really do need to try and complete that. I really need to take some effort. I guess it's probably a bigger project that I need to complete over a number of years, but if for anything, just to say that you read Proust, I mean, that's a good enough reason to read the entire series as anything. Another book on the Man Booker International Prize, unfortunately not shortlisted, which it definitely should have been. This is The Faculty of Dreams by Sara Stridsberg, and this is translated by, the translator was more visible, Deborah Bragan-Turner. And what I loved about this book is like a fictionalized account of the last days of Valerie Solanas. And she is an extreme feminist. She wrote a manifest called the Scum Manifest, and like people say Scum is the society for cutting up men. That's the type of feminist she is, and it really explores her last days from the trial for shooting Andy Warhol, being put in a psychiatric hospital and being in prison and dying alone in a hotel room. There's all this playing out, but Valerie is such an amazing character in this book. She's very sassy. She doesn't take shit from anyone, and I really like that. I really think she came off as a strong woman that was very sure of herself, very sure that society are mistreating women, and was willing to take any step necessary just to put more of a gender balance in the world. And it really comes out with her interactions with people from the Andy Warhol and all the people that surrounded Andy Warhol and the factory. A lot of that was just so fascinating, just seeing her just be so confident in herself, being so sure about wanting to make the world more balanced. And I really think this book was just amazing at the ability. It's very gritty, it's very raw, and it's actually very funny. I think she's a hilarious character, and I don't know how true it is to the real Valerie, but I think I really like the character. I really think she was witty and intelligent and was willing to talk back and be snarky. And I guess that's what made this book so interesting, and it was one of the strengths of the book. I haven't read any more books by Sara Stridsberg, but I'll be reading more most likely in August for Women in Translation Month. And that disturbing nature plays in the last book as well, but in a different way. So the last book that I want to talk about kind of has similarities to those two, and that is The Little Girl on the Ice Floe by Adélaïde Bond. This is translated by Tilly Kover. And this is a memoir that explores Adélaïde Bond's life from being sexually assaulted at 9 years old. And she talks a lot about how the trauma of it has caused the brain to block out this traumatic event, and little situations or words or smells. A lot of things can trigger her, and a lot of this is about exploring how she uncovers this damage done to her through therapy and tries to pick up the pieces and tries to move on from this tragedy by discovering what is a tragedy and taking the necessary steps to recover. And it does end in a trial where numerous other women have all come forward and said this same thing happened to me from this man. And part of her process of healing was going to the police and say, we've got this as sexual touching as the crime, but I really need to put this down as rape. This is what happened to me. I was raped. And what I really loved about this was the writing style. She uses the third person again, similar to the years, where she's saying she all the time, like she is watching herself from a distance and not being able to interact, not being able to do anything to help or improve the situation. So she feels like an outsider just staring down on herself and seeing the things happen to her and how it plays out. And it really invokes that feeling of being detached from herself and feeling like she is broken in a way that needs to be put back together. And you see that kind of shift when she starts taking the steps to try and repair and try to heal. And it's a disturbing book. It's a very short book, about 200 pages. And I spent a lot of time reading this. I thought 200 pages, I'll probably be able to read this in a few days. But it took me 2 weeks because it's just so difficult to read. The writing is beautiful, and I love the book for that. But it's hard to say you love a book when the themes of the book is so disturbing and so upsetting. So take your time with it, enjoy the language, enjoy reading this book, because I definitely think it's worth your effort. It's not an easy read. It's a book that I think more people need to read because it's just so powerful. And I'll be talking more about this as a spoiler on my podcast, because this is a book that needs to be discussed, and I'm not doing it much justice. I think I need someone else to talk with and talk about the ideas in the book. So keep an eye out. In the future, I'm not sure when, there will be a podcast episode for this. Just a couple of books I'm currently reading at the moment. One of them is called Lie to Me. It's a French book by Philippe Besson, and it's kind of like the French Call Me By Your Name in the sense that it is a story of a passionate romance between these two boys, and the difference between Call Me By Your Name and Lie With Me is this, that it doesn't feel like someone's getting groomed. These are two teenage boys that have this passionate affair, and then they're separated, and like we see the affair, and then we see the life of the main character 20 years later and how that has stayed with him. And I picked up this book because the translator of this book is Molly Ringwald, and it's like the birth of the celebrity translator. And I was curious to see if she could pull it off, and she has done a really great job of translating this book. I think it is a beautifully written book, and I'm curious to see if more celebrities are going to try and translate some of their favourite books from another language into English. But you have to wonder, surely she's getting paid a lot more than a translator would normally get paid. So is it worth it? I mean, there are lots of amazing translators that could have done a really good job of bringing this book to life. But would this book get enough attention if Molly Ringwald had not translated it? So I'll talk more about that once I've finished it. But it's definitely a book that I'm enjoying at the moment. I'm also reading 2666 by Roberto Bolano. That's translated by Natasha. Wimmer. I'll be reading this for a while. I'm only about 130 pages into this 1,000-page book, so it's going to take me a while. You probably hear me say I'm still reading this book for many of these, but I love Roberto Bolano's style. I like his writing. I really think this is going to be a book that I'm going to rate as one of my favourites for the year. I've read it before. I read Savage Detectives and I read By Night in Chile, and I really enjoyed those books. What I think I really like about 2666 at the moment is he's created this fictional author, and he's playing out this criticism on this fictional author, and he's done it really well. It feels very much like criticism you would read for any author, but because it's a fictional author, it does give him a bit more freedom to explore literary criticism in the way he wants to. I know that's not going to be the entire book because it's basically 5 different books, but at the moment I'm in this part of the book and I'm really loving it. Unfortunately, these books are on my iPad because I've been using Scrib to read more books, and I much prefer to read paperback, so it is annoying, but I think the ability to access a book really quickly is appealing, and because I'm still looking for work, I have to rely on not buying books. So I'm trying to be good on my budget. I probably should be reading the unread books on my shelves, but these are a couple of books that I've wanted to read. The third book I am reading at the moment is Pretty Things by Virginie, and this is translated by Emma Ramadan. I'm not sure if I am a fan of this author. I think I really like Burden Subjects, and I've only read the first book in that trilogy because of the music, because of the references to punk music, and I really appreciated that. And without those music references, I don't think she's an author for me. She is very transgressive, very gritty, and very disturbing, but not in a way that I have found interesting. So I will complete this book. This would be my third of her book. The other I've read, which was more thriller-esque, and it was more trying to be disturbing in a thriller-type way. So that's probably my least favourite. This is probably a step above that book, but nothing like Burden Subjects, because I think the music is what really drove me through that book. I guess that's it for my attempt to return to BookTube. If you want to find me elsewhere, all my links to social media are in the description below. And hopefully this format works. I feel like giving me that freedom to not stick to a format and do what I want in this way might help me create more content, and hopefully it will, because I love the community. I love the BookTube community. I love the feeling of getting comments. So leave me a comment and tell me why I should be reading other books instead of translations. I don't care. I think the appeal of BookTube is the comments. Without the comments, I don't think I would be doing BookTube. And I was discussing this last night with my wife, that there is a lot of comments that are simply, hey, I've never heard of this book, or that sounds interesting, that really don't invoke a conversation. And while it feels like the small talk of BookTube, I think it's probably better than not getting any comments at all. I love comments where someone talks about their experiences with the books or shares a thought that they want to share, and it starts a conversation. Obviously, I'm here for that conversation experience. So I want to talk to people about books, especially translations, because that's what I'm interested in. But a comment saying, hey, I'll watch this video, is probably better than nothing. And look, I've been tempted to just say, hey, I'll watch this video as a comment, because I feel like it's probably better to say, look, I saw your video, rather than leaving a like, because you are just telling someone, hey, look, I'm still watching. And comments are the life of BookTube. I would recommend for people to leave more comments on every video, but if you don't want to leave a comment on this video, that's fine, but I would appreciate those comments. That's it for me. Hopefully I'll be back soon. I definitely want to talk about some of the recent books I've been reading. Might have finished one or two of the books I've read, definitely not 266, but maybe on the weekend or next week I'll talk about those. Thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll see you soon again.